Good morning, Kenya. Rise and shine to the morning momentum, your daily dose of a comprehensive rundown of the top stories making the headlines, today being Wednesday, 12th of February, 2025. This morning, we'll be having a great show lined up for you. We'll be discussing what was going on in the parliament yesterday, the political shift, and the power shift in majority leadership and minority leadership in the parliament. I have some panelists with me here in studio, but before then, let's take a quick look at the top stories making the headlines on the papers. Use the hashtag The Morning Momentum at Younib Media TV at Alfonsoh Albakwekwe. Now, let's take a look at the front page of the Daily Nation this morning. Shah tycoons link in teachers' insurance woes. Now, Jayesh Umesh Saini is the beneficial owner of Medical Administrators Limited and Bliss Healthcare Limited, which are at the center of the 55 billion teachers' medical insurance controversy that imploded recently after some hospitals withdrew services to beneficiaries and their families, citing pay arrears. That story is beefed up for you on page 4 of the Daily Nation this morning. So the National Treasury has failed to pay 9 billion shillings in premiums since September 2024. On page 7 this morning, Wetangula to rule on majority party today, which forms part of our discussion this morning. The fourth session of the National Assembly started on a wrong footing, unable to reconstitute the House Business Committee that determines its calendar as the reality of the court judgment that determined Azimio as the major city as the majority side in the House manifested. This came after Speaker Wetangula stayed the formation of the powerful committee pending his communication on the ruling. Also on page 12 this morning, how an inmate in committee conned me out 7 million shillings, quote unquote. A financial expert stunned a city court by detailing how she lost more than 7.6 million shillings to an inmate in committee maximum prison. On the cover page this morning, health crisis for varsity students. Now, thousands of students in public universities are facing financial distress due to delays in the disbursement of funds for their upkeep by the loans board. You'll catch up with that on the cover page of the Daily Nation this morning. Now, let's take a quick look at what the Standard has in store for you this morning. The elephant in the room, House of Impunity. Now, in spite of a declaration on who has the numbers in Parliament, debate raged on the subject, with Speaker Moses Wetangula expected to rule on the matter before the decision is heard in an appellate court. That story is beefed up for you on page 4 of the Standard this morning. Among sentiments of MPs in attendance yesterday, we start with the Millie Odhiambo, the minority whip, and I quote her: "The court infer that because of the position you hold as Speaker and also as party leader of your party, it is not possible for you to be fair." Kimani Ichung'wah, majority leader, I quote him: "I disagree with the court because those members enjoy certain inalienable rights to associate with the political coalition they desire." More of that is beefed up for you on page 4 of the Standard this morning. On page 2, Cabinet approves 4.2 trillion shillings budget. Now, with a focus on lowering cost of living and expanding the tax base, government intends to spend 3.1 trillion shillings on recurrent expenses and 725.1 billion shillings on development. You want to catch up with that on page 2 of the Standard this morning. Also, panel on the IEBC matter, team to be in office by April. That story is beefed up for you on page 19. On page 17 this morning, ex-NYS clerk loses 500 million shillings properties. You'll catch up with that. Now, on page 6, what Kenyans feel about their counties. This is about the ranking of governors, a poll that was released yesterday by Infotrack, ranking Governor Irungu Kang'ata as the best performing governor at the moment. On page 20, business news, relief after banks lower interest rates. In the international scene, Trump warns Hamas over hostages. And lastly, on sports news this morning on the Standard, Musiala, the cog in Bayern Munich will. You'll catch up with that on page 32. Now, let's delve into our conversation this morning, which forms the headline of the Standard. house of impunity, and that's what we are discussing. The power shift in the parliament, the majority versus the minority. What does that mean, and how are Kenyans taking that? Now, with me in studio this morning are our guests. On my right, Stephen Olwoch, and on my left, Mr. Vincent Tanaka. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Alfonsoh.
Thank you so much for making time so that we may have this discussion. Steve, I'll start with you. Minority, majority, the loggerheads in parliament. So what after this?
Thank you, Alfonsoh. Let me jog your mind back into 2022. After general election, you saw what happened. His Excellency, President William Ruto, is a cunning politician. After general election, he knew he doesn't have numbers in parliament. What did he do? The minor parties, he ensured that he buy them so that he grows to his coalition, so that he has numbers. Why did he want to have numbers in parliament? He knows when he could have gone to minority side, the business of the house could have not taken place and his agendas could have not gone through. So he ought to have brought these small parties to come to his side so that the ruling could be made that that his coalition now has the majority. Moving forward, sometimes it's difficult to interpret, but I'm seeing his hands in this ruling. You remember the Prime Cabinet Secretary, Moses Mudavadi, formed his party and joined Oda party. This could be a coercion into Moses Wetangula to also fold his party so that he knows political arithmetic that might not favor him come 2027. So maybe it could be part of coercion to this guy so that he can fold his party to join his party so that to capture this guy so that could not make political move.
We'll talk about that in a short while. Mr. Tanaka, the big question here still remains, so what after all this power shift? So what, whether Azimio becomes the majority or if it remains Kenya Kwanza? So what?
First of all, good morning, viewers. Commenting about the issue of majority, especially after the ruling. When the Azimio coalition challenged this matter in court, there were no broad-based governance. Now, the ruling is coming at a time when now part of the Azimio is part of the Kenya Kwanza government. And just like what my friend Steve has said, immediately after election, president need to have numbers in parliament so that they can dictate the business of the day. So he brought so many MPs, so many legislators from the majority side. And I think this ruling was based on pre-election agreements, whereby those who are elected in parliament, according to the pre-election agreement, majority of them are from Azimio. And Azimio right now, it is not even united, because the likes of Martha Karua, Kalonzo Musyoka are not reading from the same script with Raila Odinga. So Azimio might be the majority in parliament, but in real sense, they are not majority, because they are pulling sideways. Because Kalonzo has his people, they are opposed to this government. Raila Odinga side, and if you can do a postmortem review on what Junet has been saying, being a minority leader in parliament, he has been a pro-government member of parliament. And now this one also make me ask, will Raila Odinga side accept to still give the majority side, despite the ruling with the Kenya Kwanza? I don't think so, because according with me, the courts should be respected. The ruling should be respected. We are a constitutional country. And when the court has ruled that Azimio should be majority, it should remain like that. I don't expect Speaker of the National Assembly to rule against what the court has ruled, because Parliament is a arm of government, same way as the judiciary. So when the judiciary has declared that now the Azimio is the majority, the Speaker of the National Assembly should obey that ruling. And this one now brings us to the question that if this Parliament conducted all these businesses, including the impeachment of the Deputy President, I think now every business that was carried with this Parliament when Kimani Chungwa and all those people were on the majority side, it should be null and void.
Now, you brought in a very nice aspect of it, that at the moment, Azimio has become, thinner in terms of numbers, because we've seen that political rift between them. You mentioned the likes of Akina Karua, Akina Kalonzo. So what then are we going to use to measure whether Azimio is the majority or Kenya Kwanza is the majority, considering the fact that we have some political parties that have already withdrawn? Are we going to use the current situation to determine whether they are the majority, or we are going to go back to the original time when they assumed their seats in Parliament?
No, we don't have to use any kind of measure to know if they are majority, because there is a ruling in place, and that ruling, I think it is based on pre-election agreement before we went to an election, and it is clear that Azimio is the majority. What I don't know if the party leader for ODM, of course, who dictate so much numbers in Azimio, will accept to let the Kenya Kwanza take the majority side. And what I will also add is that just like what Steve has said, and he has described the head of state as a cunning politician, but I see the head of state also as a crafty politician. I see his hand in this, because you remember even during the impeachment of the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, the former, there was also a ruling that gave Uhuru Kenyatta back his Jubilee. But now, look at also the timing of this ruling. It is coming at a time when we have the broad-based government, and you see now there is changes in executive, and maybe the president just wanted a way on how also to include the Azimio coalition or the ODM in the majority positions in Parliament. I think so.
All right, Steve, what then did the Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Moses Wetangula, use to rule that Kenya Kwanza are the majority back in 2022? If we know at the moment the court ruling says Azimio are the majority, but he ruled in 2022 that Kenya Kwanza are the majority. What informed his decision back then?
What informed Moses Wetangula's decision to say that Kenya Kwanza was the majority in the House is that he was just following the command of the boss, the President William Samoei Ruto. If you can see at the chronological occurrence of events, is that first of all, before they could convene the first meeting of the House after the elections, they brought MPs to their coalition. After that, when they go into the House, they didn't follow Constitution. According to the court ruling, is that they violated the Constitution. And even according to Kenya Party's Act, is that there is a duration. Even if you are moving, you are ditching a certain coalition to move to another one, there is a specific duration, I think 6 months, before you could be declared that you've left a certain coalition and moving to another coalition. So that ruling was baseless. It ought have not to occur. So that was just a personal decision. And as we know, and I think even Honorable Raila talked about it at some point when the Gen Z protest was taking place, is that the decision this guy can make in parliament is going to be biased. Reason being, he's a party leader to the majority, one of the parties that form part of the now then the majority coalition in the government. At the same time, want to make a ruling that can favor the whole house, which is very difficult. So he was making a ruling that he knew very well that is going to favor them. So the ruling was very baseless, yeah.
We also, what happened in parliament yesterday, the legislatures from Azimio coalition took the side of the majority, forcing their Kenya Kwanza counterparts to stay on the side of the minority. Mr. Tanaka, what does this mean for the legislative process in the parliament?
First, let me also add something on what you asked, Steve, about Moses Wetangula ruling. Remember, after election, the first business in parliament is to elect a speaker. And speaker was elected. In fact, Moses Wetangula was not appointed like the members of the House Business Committee. He was elected. And he was elected by the majority members of parliament. So that simply means, practically, the majority members of parliament are the Kenya Kwanza, or they bought some of the MPs, including independent MPs, to help them command the numbers in the House. So I think his ruling was based on the practical numbers in the House, not pre-election agreement. And again, also, you see, our parliament has lost constitutional obligation to scrutinize the executive, because we can see that the executive have captured our parliament. And even if the minority side yesterday took the position of the majority side, I know they are going to consult their party leaders. And the reason as to why Wetangula may be postponed the ruling up to today is going to consult maybe the president, who is the head of now the majority side as per parliament, and also they are going to consult the other party leader of Azimio, so that they come up with a solution which will not affect their units. So whether they were occupying the seats of majority side yesterday, those were just side issues, because the minority leadership and the majority leadership in the parliament today are reading from the same script. They are in the same bed. The ODM, the Kenya Kwanza, they are in the same bed. So whatever they were doing yesterday, it was just joking until they consult their bosses.
Now, allow me to interject quick first on what you just mentioned about, some MPs shifting sides from Azimio to Kenya Kwanza. We never saw them shifting from their political parties as well. They never declared that, I have left ODM, gone to UDA, despite the allegations that these MPs were bought and they shifted sides, all right? So does this still make them belong to the Azimio coalition, despite the fact that they already crossed over to support the ruling government right now?
You see, on paper, they are still part of Azimio coalition, but practically, they are helping the Kenya Kwanza to execute the government duty. So it is very hard to corner them and tell them, now you have to resign from this position, so that we know actually the number that you are dealing with, that you are not part of us.
So what are we using to measure who is majority, who is minority, if on paper we still have these legislators as members of the Azimio coalition, and practically they are supporting Kenya Kwanza initiatives?
I don't know how the speaker will make a ruling, but I think the speaker is going to make a ruling based on the practical numbers. The practical numbers in the House, because the Kenya Kwanza affiliated party, including the members of parliament which were not part of the Kenya Kwanza, which they vote immediately after election, they form the majority side, and that is the naked truth. And I think that is it is the criteria that he is going to use to make a ruling. Based on that, he was also elected by the majority side. The Speaker himself was also elected by the majority side, and he is representing the majority party, saying that he is a speaker. Because the minority side also had a candidate. And their candidate, I think, Farah Mali, lost to Speaker Wetangula. So it is a bit tricky, and I'm also interested to see how he will make a ruling. But as per now, the parliament is operating outside the law. If the court has ruled that the majority side does not belong to Kenya Kwanza, then it means that every operation that was carried by that team is null and void, including the impeachment of the deputy president.
Alfonso, allow me to interject. My brother Vincent have said that Kenya Kwanza used practical numbers, which in my opinion, it is not practical, it is perceived practical numbers. In that, Moses Wetangula, I agree, he was elected by the majority of the House to be the Speaker of the House. But this, the court has made a ruling that is the vision to decide that Kenya Kwanza were the majority in the House is null and void. So even this thing they are saying that is now going to make a ruling on which side of the party is the majority or minority, I think is just mark timing. We know that Parliament, their role is to make laws. There is a body which is judiciary that sometimes interpret laws when the law is not clear. And I think in this case they've done their job by interpreting, knowing that by law the majority in the House should be Azimio, the minority should be the Kenya Kwanza. Wetangula, in his wisdom or lack of it thereof, knows that even himself he might be in a hot soup for making some radical decision, and this decision he made might haunt him. He's going to look on a way he can move away from this error he had made to come and again try to manipulate whatever decision court has made. And I think, in my opinion, he's not getting away with it. Yes.
Okay. What next then for Azimio or Kenya Kwanza? Should either of them be declared now minority? Let's look at it from the aspect of you are the minority, you become the majority, and you are the majority, you become the minority. These are possible outcomes. What next if, say, for example, Kenya Kwanza is going to be declared the minority according to the court ruling?
I think yesterday we saw in the Parliament, the Azimio coalition, they went there and occupied the seats for the majority. And at some point, I think at some point, Speaker referred the majority leader, Kimani Ichung'wah, as the former majority leader. So I know, even him, he knows that the courts, they have interpreted the law and they have decided, and he knows that the Azimio should be the majority. Whether they have numbers there right now or not, the decision is based on the decision that were made when the first Parliament meeting. The decision is based on that. So right now, the only party that has left Azimio as at now is only NARC Kenya, through the leadership of Martha Karua. That is the only party that has exited Azimio. The rest of the parties, they are still in Azimio. Moving forward, I know we are in broad-based government. President Ruto can peg his hopes on this broad-based government and decide to command or tell Honorable the Speaker to allow Azimio side to be the majority, because he knows maybe he's safe by Azimio being the majority, and he knows that maybe his business can still go on because of the broad-based government. And he said that they are in the same bed. He can peg his hopes that going forward is not like when they were starting, when Azimio there was pull and push between the ODM or Azimio Commission and the Kenya Kwanza in that case.
Okay, Mr. Tanaka, how will this ruling affect the balance of power in Parliament, especially when it comes to passing of bills? We've seen what has happened before, and if you check at the front page of the Standard this morning, they are terming the Parliament as House of Impunity, and it is because of the preceding events that we've seen happening before. So how is this ruling going to affect the balance of power in Parliament?
First of all, I will also want to add something about Speaker Wetangula's decision today. I think that the ruling should just stay in place. It should remain that the majority side at the Azimio according to the court ruling. Just like what Steve has said, right? The work of the judiciary is to interpret the law, and our constitution is supreme. And when there is a ruling, that ruling should be obeyed. You remember the case of impeachment of the deputy president. We challenged the process at the corridors of justice, and Kindiki swearing in was altered until the court came with a ruling. Now it should be that Azimio is the majority party until that decision is challenged in a court of law. We should not wait for Moses Wetangula to pronounce himself on the ruling that already the court has only made a ruling. Another thing is that Ruto is in a fix because the Kenya Kwanza coalition is in bed with ODM, not the entire Azimio coalition. So when now there is a ruling that Azimio is the majority, even the members of parliament who are not part of William Ruto broad-based government will want to take some key positions in parliament. Like if in parliament, Azimio coalition minority package was divided from ODM, Wiper, and all those small parties. And not all those parties are part of Kenya Kwanza broad-based government. So I don't think the president will accept to work with maybe members of the Wiper as part of the majority side in parliament. So now that is where now balancing this thing is going to be difficult for the president, because these are people who are not subscribed to your agendas. They will sabotage your agendas, being that they are the majority side. And that is why we are waiting to see how they are going to come up with a ruling. And I don't, what I see also here is that president might get a rebellion, especially from those who are occupying the majority side in parliament, who are not from ODM, the people like Ndindi Nyoro, Kimani, because they are going to be affected. Some of the positions they are holding is as a result of the ruling from the ruling of the speaker that they were the majority side. Now, if now the court has declared that they are the minority side, it will force them to relinquish those positions to the Azimio coalition. And I think now they will start blaming the party leader or the president on this, that we see your hand in this. So it is not easy for the Kenya Kwanza government and also for ODM in this case.
Steve, Mr. Tanaka brought in the executive aspect of this thing. And should the executive branch refuse to acknowledge this ruling, are we then at a potential constitutional crisis?
There is no constitutional crisis in this case. What the executive ought to do is that they should respect the decision the court has made, because court is independent, and they should respect their decision, and that is all. There is no constitutional crisis within the case. I know the only thing that might be difficult is that him as a president, he has his agendas, and maybe these agendas are trusting these agendas with now the opposing side might be difficult. For example, if he has a bill that he wants to go through parliament, it can be thwarted. This bill might not find its way to the floor of the house when the majority is not on his side. That is the difficulty he might get as president. But as at now, he should obey the court ruling.
Okay. Tanaka, what does this mean for the upcoming legislative deliberations, especially on the agendas posed to the parliament by the executive?
The executive should not dictate the operation of the parliament, because these are, you see, we have three arms of government, which is parliament, executive, and also judiciary. These institutions should operate freely and independently, and we should stop encouraging the executive capture the parliament, because when the executive has captured the parliament, now it means that we will not be operating within the law. And as you can see, so many operations of the government, especially executive, are supported by the parliament, being that the president is controlling the parliament through the majority side. So I don't want to see a situation whereby we don't have a parliament which is operating with orders from executive, because we should stop encouraging this culture of allowing the executive, which the head of course is the president, to capture our parliament, to control our parliament. Because if you jog your mind back at the finance bill, you see, majority of members of parliament voted as per the direction from the executive. You see, and this is what maybe now the Gen Z saw it, that now we don't have anybody who can now stand on the side of the people, because the parliament, executive, and also maybe some of the judiciary officials are reading from the same script with the president, who is the head of the executive. So what I am advocating for, let each and every institution operate freely and independently as per the law.
Okay. Now, quick first, let's take a look at what you are saying now. Justice has finally been served. The Speaker's ruling in 2022 was politically motivated, and now the real majority has taken its rightful place. Kevin Onyango there says he's watching from Kaile Junction. Thank you so much, Kevin. Ada Cheng says this is a victory for democracy. Parliament should reflect the true will of the people, and this ruling corrects a major injustice. Thank you so much, Ada. Elvis Doso says this is judicial activism at its worst. The court has no business determining who is the majority in parliament. Thank you, Elvis. Steve Ouma says the speaker's ruling should stand. MPs realigned politically, and that should have been respected. Okay. Now, also we have here Norbert Mwao, who says this is a political coup. Kenya Kwanza has been running parliament smoothly, and now Azimio will only bring chaos and unnecessary fights. All right. Thank you so much, Norbert. there is a sentiment here I want us to have a debate on. This is judicial activism. This is Elvis also saying this is judicial activism at its worst. The court has no business determining who is the majority in parliament. Now, whose sole mandate is it to make the ruling on who takes the majority and who takes the minority? Is it the Speaker of the National Assembly, or the court can also have its hand on the ruling?
Alfonsoh, the roles are very distinct there. Speaker Moses Wetangula made his ruling based on what he thought was right. If I see that whatever decision he made was not right, I cannot confront him head on. I need to get a third party to interpret for us. This rule that was made, is it good or a bad rule? And the parliament, since they are the people who makes the law, they cannot interpret the same law. Someone else have to interpret it, and that is the judiciary. So I think, in my thinking, judiciary, they did their job, and it was excellent.
Mr. Tanaka, let me collect your mind on this. Whose sole mandate is it to make a ruling on who becomes the majority and who becomes the minority between the legislature and the judiciary?
You see, the work of the judiciary is to interpret the law, because the speaker was elected by politicians, so he might make political decisions which may be outside the law. So that is not judicial activism. You see, the work of the judiciary is to interpret the law, and they are clear on this. And having that ruling, that is not the first ruling that judiciary is reading from a different script with parliament. And then that it is the judiciary which is mandated now to interpret the law. I believe that it is the judiciary in this case which now has the power to determine who is the majority, because the decision was contested at the corridors of justice and the ruling is out. And that is what our constitution dictates, that if you are not satisfied with anything or any ruling, there is somewhere that you can go and contest, and the ruling is out.
Well, Steve, what does this mean for coalition politics in the upcoming elections?
Politics is taking shape, and it means several things. One, it is, I'm just hoping maybe the president had a blessing. Okay, the court had a blessing of president to make this decision. At the same time, it could be now judiciary punishing now the executive. If it is judiciary disciplining now the executive, then President Ruto is in hot soup. As we know right now, on 15th, we are going for election in AU seat, chairmanship. Whatever the outcome there, our president is sitting on,
Hanging in the balance.
Hanging on the balance. When Raila comes back after whatever the ruling will be that side, if it will favor him, good for President Ruto. If it will not favor him, Baba might come back to destabilize this government. And he might have the leeway to impeach this same government. If this ruling, he did have a hand on this ruling. So, moving forward politically, this thing might put the president in a rock and a hard place, in that he might be impeached anytime. Remember, we have a grieved partner in here, that is the Rigathi Gachagua. If Raila comes back, team up with Rigathi Gachagua, has the minority position in the House, they might sneak a bill now to impeach the president, and this bill might go through, might fall through in the parliament. So moving forward, this ruling is going to change so many things, politically speaking. Yes.
Mr. Tanaka, does this then set a precedent for coalition agreements and party discipline in the future?
Yes, you see, first let me also add something about what's the last say, huh? You see, last week, I think it was on Monday, I saw there was a ODM women prayers for Baba as he goes to the hearing, and you saw now the sitting governor, Nairobi sitting governor, who is a member of UDA, joining the ODM and also donning some a bit of attires related from ODM, and the UDA had no problem with it. So it simply means that the ODM and UDA are in the same bed. So I don't see if there will be a problem if this ruling will affect the president so much, because already he has ODM on his side. The only problem that will be there is the members of the Wiper Party, who is not part of the broad-based government. And also we'll just see how effective will these other members who are not part of me will be if this ruling will be implemented. And going forward with Raila Odinga and William Ruto coalition, I foresee maybe if Raila will fail to get the AUC seat, he will come back and negotiate more. I don't think he will go against the president, because his sons and daughters are in government. So he will come and negotiate for a broader package than whatever than what he has. He will even want to have the position of the deputy president, because now he will be now the major contributor, or he will be now the only person who can help now the president to win his re-election. And I'm one of those Kenyans who doesn't wish him to win that seat, because you see, there is no, I don't see any reason for us to support Raila, so that in return we should support somebody in this. It helps me with nothing, you see. And I don't see a person who was a member of parliament for Kibra for 20 years and left no legacy what he will do in Africa when now he's older like Medusela. You see, so personally, me as a Kenyan, in the spirit of the broad-based government, I extend my broad-based support to our other friends from the other part of Africa, and because they want to use this AUC seat to manipulate the politics in our country, and that is why I don't read from the same script with them. Yes.
All right, we respect your reservations this morning, Mr. Tanaka. My director is giving me a bombastic side eye, and I want us to, as we finish now, take your collective sentiments on the last thing here. How do you see this playing in the long term, in as far as parliamentary democracy is concerned in the country? I'll start with you, Steve.
Parliamentary democracy, based on this ruling, I think moving forward, this is going to install some discipline in the House, in that even the executive that is going to come in place will know that even if I make some members to come on my side, because decisions that are being made right now will act as precedents in the future, and some judges are going to make reference out of them. And I know that now moving forward, that discipline is going to be there, because no executive is going to risk again to do the same mistake they've done ikakuwa nullified. Yes.
Tanaka, your thoughts on that?
Parliament, as I said, Parliament constitutional obligations has lost all meanings. Not only during President William Ruto term, even during rules do not attend. And it is a culture whereby the executive have mastered how to capture the parliament. So there is no freedom or democracy in parliament as far as now the executive have all the resources to buy members of parliament so that they can breathe in the same state with the executive. I think it is because the executive, when they want to pass some laws which favors them, they need the majority in the house. And this one now should be now a high opener, especially to the executive, that they should be very careful when they're making maybe such like decisions going forward, because now this one now it simply means that the entire operation of the parliament was unconstitutional, and if you have a competent court, it should nullify everything that was carried by this parliament, so that it serves a lesson also to the upcoming parliament that thinks that you cannot do using torrents. You should follow the law.
All right, let's sample a few more feedback right here. With Azimio in control of key committees, we hope to see better accountability and oversight of the government. That is Ferris right there. Now, the speaker should resign. He manipulated parliamentary rules to favor Kenya Kwanza, but the courts has exposed the truth. That is Lorene Atieno says she is watching us from Choka. Thank you so much, Lorene. Now, if the government is led by Kenya Kwanza, how can the opposition claim to be the majority in parliament? This makes no sense. All right. Now, we need a fresh election. If Azimio insists they are the majority, let the people decide again. This one says he is called Jaloka. Now, Kenya's democracy is still young, and this ruling might help define how coalitions should operate in the future. This is Kevin Mwau. Thank you so much, Kevin. I just hope this doesn't lead to more political instability. Kenya needs unity, not more fights over power. That is Robert Agwingi. Thank you so much, Robert. We have quite a number, and we might not be able to sample all of them. But at this particular juncture, I want to take this moment to thank you so much for keeping us company and for joining the conversation. We meet again tomorrow, same time, same place. This morning we have been discussing the power shift in the parliament, the debate on the majority and the minority between the Kenya Kwanza and the Azimio La Umoja coalition. With me in studio this morning has been Stephen Olwoch on my right and Vincent Tanaka to my left. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for making time for us to have this conversation. Now, we see you again tomorrow, same time, same place. But before then, allow me to also extend my heartfelt gratitude to all those who made this broadcast a success. Behind the lens, Elias Muchina, and the chief controller this morning has been Peninah Wachera. So see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Until then, do have a beautiful day ahead of you. Bye-bye for now. I have Alfonsoh, Ouma.